All right, everyone. So I've been playing Pokemon Legends ZA. Now, I was really excited about this game because I had not really played many of the Pokemon games on the Switch before this came out. I wanted to try a few of them, and it was kind of a mixed bag, right, in terms of the games I had played that had come out prior. So I was excited to see this one because it was supposed to be different. And I do think that after playing this game for probably 30 plus hours, that this game is quite different than any Pokemon game I have ever played. Now, maybe there's one that I haven't played yet on the Switch prior, right? Maybe that one was closer to this, but for all the games I've played, I've never played a Pokemon game quite like this. And I think there's actually a lot of good here as it pertains to the foundation of this game. I really enjoyed the battling. I thought the battling was really really cool. I thought it was a completely different way than we're used to doing it, and I thought it actually did add a level of excitement. I'm one of these people who anytime I play one of these new Pokemon games, especially the more recent ones on the Switch, I view it as, look, I'd rather be playing Leaf Green or I'd rather be playing Diamond and Pearl or any of the, games from older Nintendo consoles. But to be honest with you, this was the first one I played where I said, "Hey, I actually think this style is quite fun." Right? I thought the battling was fun. I thought the battle zone mechanic, the catch zone mechanic where you were catching Pokemon in I guess the wild zones, right, where you're catching them, all the battle zone stuff. I thought that was all really cool. I thought the ideas were good, and I thought it gave you a Pokemon experience that actually had a really fun kind of gameplay loop, right? It gave you this situation where if you go through Leaf Green or any of these older games, you would kind of beat the game, right, by going through it. And then after that, you would get some type of really fun gameplay loop, the end game plus, as you would call it. Like in Emerald, you had the Battle Frontier and all of this stuff. And so in this game, you kind of get that throughout the whole thing. Like, and I thought that was really cool. I enjoyed it. I haven't actually played a ton of the new game plus yet, so I don't know how deep this goes, so I can't actually talk to that. I just have finished the main story and some of those side quests, but I will say that I thought that aspect of it was good. Where I think this game falls just a little bit short, and I want to be clear that when I first started this game, I was in love with it from the start. As it went on, I started to fall a little bit out of love with it as it went longer. And I think the reason for that is because this game it just forces too much, and I say this so much about a lot of modern games. It forces too much of what you're doing down this linear path for too long. Constantly having to run back to the hotel for a strategy meeting, constantly have to go do this and go do that. And all I wanted to do was rank up my Pokemon, go to the battle zone and battle and get enough points to fight my next match, and then go catch some of the new Pokemon and see what new ones you can get. And they had in the battle zone the ones with the red eyes, and I was trying to catch all of those. I wanted a whole team with just those. I was, I couldn't wait to get a Gengar, and I thought, oh man, I'm gonna have to wait, obviously, till I could trade with someone. They had a wild Gengar I found in one of the missions. You can catch one. I found it after that in the new game. Plus, you can get them a champ. So it looks like you can get some of these without even, having to trade. And that was all really cool. Like, I loved that. My frustration, and it is frustration, is that I constantly was being forced into this kind of cutscene where you're hitting through dialogue, explaining this, and it was just, I'm sorry, it was meaningless and stupid. Like, I cared about the characters, right? And you could have had this type of strategy meeting and dialogue every 5 missions, every maybe once you get X amount, you get up X amount ranks, then you do it. Like, you could have done so much more with less. Even the ending of this game, it's like to get from point one to point two, right? From when you're running through, while everything's going crazy to fight the big prism tower, you're going through like all of this dialogue that just didn't need to be there. Just let us fight our way there. I don't need 35 explanations. And that is to me the most frustrating part of this game. And it's also one reason I have a lot of hope for Pokemon going forward because this game to me lays a foundation for exactly what the games need to be going forward. And like I said, I'm an old school guy in terms of I love the older games. I love the older style. But I heard someone say, I forgot what video I was watching, that we're having I think is it Pokemon, I forgot what the name of it is, but it's basically one where it's based on the old battle mechanics. It's not, I don't think it's Pokemon Stadium again. I don't think it's another one of those, but it's like that where it's the old style of battling and it's a focus on that type of battling. So I think if you could have two games running side by side, one where we get that old school kind of battle mechanic and then the newer games go in this direction, I think that's great. But they have to view this game differently. You have to make this, in my opinion, almost like Pal World, in the sense of Pal World gives you this massive landscape that you can run here and run there on your own, do whatever you want. Now, you can't do everything you want because there's level caps, right? So you go one place, this place, the people you're fighting, too high of a level, so you can't go there. Like, give us this Pokemon experience with that style. And you could still tell stories, but I don't want to sit through all of these cutscenes when all I want to do is be battling and catching Pokemon. And I thought the day and night mechanic was fine. I thought it was like a decent idea, but even that, it's like, you know what? Like, we don't really need that. Okay. Let us do whatever we want throughout the whole time because, and you could still have a timer in the battle zone because I like that. Okay. So you have to get X amount of points. So you're moving and they don't want to allow you to just kind of be able to go to a Poke Center, heal up, and get back in, right? They wanted to make it like, no, no, you have to do this stuff quick, right? You have to do this quick. So you can still have a timer in the zone to get X amount of the points. I just think at least for the big chunk of this game, you felt like, and I didn't even mind the Mega EX battles, but you could have just put those all throughout the city at the beginning of the game and had people just do them as they wanted to. I just felt like you were constantly forced when you wanted to be maybe moving up the rank, right? You could have done so much more. If it wasn't, I felt like it was a game that had a really cool open world element that didn't have it set up to be that way. Like you have all these really cool open world things, and instead I'm stuck having to do mission after mission after mission. And I understand that certainly there was a lot of opportunity for me to say, okay, I'm not going to do the next mission. I'm just going to go to the battle zone or I'm going to go to those wild zones and capture Pokemon. That's 110% true. You could do that. The problem is you can't move forward at all in the story without going through it. And it's just, to me, it just kind of breaks the experience and it makes it frustrating. Like I said, when I literally have texts on my phone, the first probably 5, 6 hours in this game, I thought it was like, because I purposely said I'm not going to be watching reviews until I'm done with it. I don't want to hear what anybody has to say. I just want to make my own opinion on it. And I was like, man, this thing has the real chance to be one of the best Pokemon games I've ever played. That's what I thought in the beginning. And then it just dragged on and dragged on. And I'm telling you this because we're going to be playing the new game plus, and I'll give my thoughts on that maybe in a separate video. But the thing is that I can almost assure you that when I played this new game plus, I am going to be overjoyed and super happy with how it is. I can almost assure you I'm going to love every second of the new game plus because that's what I loved about the game. The problem is that you cannot make it. Okay, this is just not how games should be. Where yeah, if you want to get to the gameplay loop that you want to do, you have to play 20 plus hours of a game. I have no problem if they said, look, we want some level of a narrative story. If that narrative story lasted 6 hours and then the rest of it was 20 hours of you going through and doing stuff. And it's funny because there's so many games that have done this in the past. Like, let's take a game like Crackdown, right? Crackdown, you could basically do anything you want at any time, but there's the kind of skill gap, right? You need to do things in some order because of skill, but you're free to keep doing things. In the narrative, you understand it, but it's very small at different points. You could have done that in this game. Like I said, you could have put all of the mega evolutions that were randomly happening. You could have put them at different spots all throughout the city, and people could have tackled them as you go, right? That could have been the whole game. You didn't need to do it the way you did it, where we were just kind of forced over and over and over and over and over again to stop what we wanted to be doing, to sit through cutscenes, to sit through this cutscene. And then every single time, this is one of the things I hate when games do this. I hate when games do this. When instead of just transporting me back to where we're going, they say, let's meet at the hotel. Okay. Now I have to fast travel to the hotel. We just got done in a long series of cutscenes. Just add that in. It's just things like that that don't mean that the game's bad. I guess from what I've read from some people, and seen, like, the videos after I beat it before I made this video, I I have a feeling that people don't like this game very much, in terms of, I think the reviewers have liked it, like the mainstream reviewers, but I don't think it's like the fan base is like, this is the greatest thing of all time. And I disagree slightly with it not being a fun game and not being a good game. I think the truth of the matter is that this is a perfect foundational game to build on. I think they found a formula that could work. I think they made a pretty big change to the Pokemon formula with this one, and it's the best formula out of all the ones I've played. Just being honest with you, I think this is the best one. Not better than the original, but I think you're evolving the franchise, and I do think that this is a little bit better than I enjoyed it. I guess that's what I'm saying. I just wish they get, if you're going to make these changes and you're going to put us in this city, right? So, unlike other Pokemon games where you're traveling vast areas, you're in one city. I actually didn't hate even that idea, right? I thought the wild zones were, I- I'll say this, the wild zones were much better than back in the day when we were like, we want to catch this Pokemon. Let's run through the grass to hope one pops up. Like, this was a better system than that, right? I thought that was a better system. It was a little bit less frustrating. I just think that at the end of the day, they made a game that has a perfect foundation, but just is held back by not just embracing the foundation that they put in place. And the story has a really cool, I actually thought the story was good. It was just too long. Like, in terms of, you just added a kind of meaningless stuff in there constantly, and it was just like, even the idea of you having to, like, get on the roof of these areas, right? And sometimes it was very easy, right? There was just a ladder or one of those hollow things that send you up. Those were fine. But other times you had to do this climbing, and it was just like, okay, why is this even something that's necessarily in the game? Like, I just don't even understand why you even have to add that in, right? That is the worst part of the game, is jumping around, trying to, like, platform almost. Your guy can't jump. He has that rotophone thing that jumps him, but it's just like, it's just, I don't understand why any of that needed to be added. And that's the most frustrating part, is that I know, I haven't played it yet, but I know when I get into this new game plus and I start really playing the new game plus, that this is going to be one of the funnest experiences I've ever had. I know that's going to be the case, and it's going to really piss me off that it took over 20 hours to get to this, and that it was there from the beginning if they just let it happen. And please, if you're someone who's a big fan of these Pokemon games, put your thoughts in the comment section below in terms of, maybe I'm wrong. Okay, 100%. But to me, it's just, you have a foundation here for, you could look at, and when I mean Pal World, I mean the open world elements of it. You can have that here. Just embrace it. Pal World embraces it through and through. And I'm not saying you have to make it with no narrative or no story at all. All I'm saying is, you have a chance to make it exactly the way I think people would go, man, this is the best Pokemon game in quite some time. Where you have the freedom to actually be on your own journey, the freedom to actually do things the way you want to do them, instead of what this game gives you, where it gives you that freedom, right? It gives you that little bit of freedom, and then it's constantly taking it back for a little bit of time, right? No, no, no. You can't have that freedom until you do this, until you fight these three mega evolutions, which were fun. But why do you have to stop my progress elsewhere Why do you have to make it so that I have to go through 85 cutscenes, right? Just to get to that point. Just put them all around the map. Make them different levels. Hell World does this, right? You go and it's funny because, you know, rather than maybe suing Hell World, they should just be like, you know what? They actually just gave us the blueprint for us to improve our game in a better way. We're going to take the mechanic of in Pal World, right? What do you have? You have these giant Pokemon, or funny enough, I just call them Pokemon, but you have these giant pals, right, that are all around the world and you can catch them, you can have them on your team, but they're all level capped. So, like, if in the beginning of the game, you can't just jump in and take them all on, right? You have to level up, and then once you're at a certain point, then you could do it. You could have done the same thing with these mega EXs, put them all around the map as places you go to battle, and look at it from the standpoint of, okay, you can't do this until your Pokemon are at level 25, and the next one isn't until 35. And you understand what I'm saying, and you go through it that way. So I just hope that's what we get. I hope they don't completely say, we're done with this formula because I think the formula works, but they just have to embrace the open world nature of it. And Pokemon's the perfect type of game where you can have a narrative, but let the player tell their own story, right? You can have a narrative that you're following, right? Beating this group, beating that group, whatever it is, right? Like in the old games, right? Going after Team Rocket or any of these groups. But you can also allow for us to do it in a way that makes sense. And I just hope we do get that here. Because I think there was a lot of good here. It's just the problem is you have to deal with stuff that you just don't want to deal with throughout a large chunk of the game to get there. And that's my 2 cents on it. So thank you all for watching, and we'll see you next time.